Hi, I'm Rob Scott from UC Today News, and in this session, I'm joined by Dominic McDonald, the CEO at Ulap. And today we're going to be talking about Ulap's journey from Kosovo to Kazakhstan and the untapped potential in emerging markets that many UC providers are overlooking, and how Ulap is thriving in these tough markets and achieving $1 million customer savings. Welcome, Dominic. How's it going?
Maganda Hapon, nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you. Thanks for joining me. Dominic, you've chosen to dive headfirst in some of the world's toughest markets at Ulap, while other UC providers are playing it safe. So, what made you take that risky leap from Kosovo to Kazakhstan? And are you chasing the chaos?
It's absolute chaos. We live and breathe off chaos, and it's just something that adds the dynamic energy of not doing the mundane and the same every day. I think really you have to look from the onset that UC vendors historically have gone where it's been safe and traditional, which is the developed economies. So I think really for us is we're looking to how do we long tail the solutions into these very hard to reach places.
Yeah, I totally understand. And most companies run from the kind of regulatory headaches in places like Southeast Asia and Africa, but Ulap seems to be thriving on them. So, how do you turn these challenges into opportunities? And what's your kind of secret weapon, I suppose, in beating the competition in these regions?
Look, I think really to begin with, our secret sauce is we got licensed. So we've been licensed in a number of these jurisdictions, and I think that's a really, really tough ask. So when you go to a very difficult economy, the competition can be the state-owned enterprise, ownership of the actual competition, and then we're going up getting licensed against them. So it could be perceived as impacting domestically, but in actual fact, it's about how do we expand that reach. Also, to multinational customers, they have a need. And in turn, once we deliver that need, we're able to bring that need also back to that local jurisdiction as well. So there's that multifaceted function that, hey, there are underserviced financial services or the FSI sector, as an example, like banks. There are banks in all of these countries. They may not be large multinationals, but they need the same services as what the multinationals needs.
Yeah, absolutely. Most often the most complex needs these global enterprises. But let's talk about those customers. I mean, let's talk about that $1 million customer saving. A lot of companies promise cost savings, but few can actually deliver on that scale. So, what moves did ULAP make to save a global client that much money? And what's your message to competitors who can't match it?
Look, I really think legacy revenue is dead. So unfortunately, that people have really looked at voice revenues as an example as a revenue stream. But as people move to omni-channel and other forms of communication, such as chat, it becomes really, really difficult to look at that legacy revenue. So for us, we never looked at making the money out of the number of minutes that we do to customers. It's the total solution. And the other thing we do is, and this is a bit of a sore point with our partners, is that aggregation versus a per user plan. So these UC vendors charge a per user per month plan where we go, hey, buy the SaaS license from the UC vendor and we'll aggregate the traffic of that country where we can spread the cost evenly at a much lower cost. So by the sheer nature of aggregation, we can dramatically reduce a customer's cost by 30 to 40%.
Wow, so that sounds like quite a unique proposition there versus some of the other providers out there.
It's extremely different and it's a unique thing, but at the same token, it's also making sure that the customer is regulatory compliant as well. So adding those two to the mix is a very difficult balancing act where people can come in and go, let's audit this to make sure it's compliant. And we go, here is how we make it compliant. And this is how we bring that savings to the multinational customer.
Yeah, and I can imagine that's very sticky as well, being that it's quite a unique solution. Let's talk about emerging markets. I mean, they're often dismissed as too risky or too small for the big players. What do those big UC providers get wrong about these regions, and how is ULAP turning those supposed weaknesses, I suppose, into big wins?
Yeah, look, I think we can look at this and break this down by region by region. If we look at the digital transformation journey of Saudi Arabia as an example, and their vision to become the next Silicon Valley, it's real, right? So there's some significant changes in global views, and now that we're at the back end of what's happened over the pandemic and the whole change of how organizations go, everything's now become global. So the expectation is what's available in New York City should be available in one of these remote jurisdictions. So that's how we treat it. And then we also say to customers there should not be a price impact by using it in these different jurisdictions as well. It's a bit of a balancing act, but I think what's really, really important is how we thrive is it's like, how do I describe it? The forgotten customers out there because, 90% of the revenue is in the developed countries today. But what they forget about is the largest population of the world have the youngest workforce that's coming through at the moment. So one of the regions we've been working on is called the Bimpiaga region, which is in Southeast Asia, 1.6 million square kilometers, over 200 million people, and the average age is below 24 years old. This is the future of these solutions, right? And people don't look at the long-term usage of how that will benefit them into the long term. It's not a short play, it's a long play, but the opportunity as being a first mover advantage means that we're there now waiting for those things to happen. We're ready to jump onto that.
It's interesting though you say that. It sounds like expectations are changing, not just amongst those younger generations, of course, but actually amongst those enterprises that these regions, I suppose they're expecting providers to be available in those regions now, and they more likely won't do business with any providers that aren't. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair to say. And I think also too that it's also about who are your existing customers and what's the expectations of those customers. So we have the blessing of having, over 60 Fortune 500 companies as customers. Therefore, their demands are so high that when we go to the emerging markets, we can share those demands and say, hey, Mr. Customer, this will be an advantage for you based on our global experience of deploying in over 100 countries.
Yeah. And regulations in these markets can be a real nightmare for most companies, yet Ulap's navigating them like a bit of a master. How do you make these markets work, in your favor?
Look, I think the thing is that I had the greatest privilege and invited to speak at the ITU and at the UN just a few weeks ago. So at the United Nations, at the recent summit at the General Assembly 79, we talked about some of these particular issues and particular things. But I think the big thing is we're involved at the regulatory level to help regulators understand how we can protect nations' national security by bringing this ease of use solutions into markets effectively and with all of the robust use and requirements of each jurisdiction. The sensitivities are different from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but really we've engaged at a regulatory, at the ITU level, at the UN level, going, hey, it's not about how much money we make. Let's get it right first. And when we get the model right, then we're going to bring the customers in and everyone's going to achieve the right goal. So we've taken that higher pitch. I think the next thing we sort of really want to mention is, we made a pledge on the International Telecommunications Union partner to connect, where we've pledged $1 million of our software to emerging markets to help them get onto the train of unified communications of 2024, 2025. So we're, putting the stake in the ground to make sure that they're also understanding the benefit of this. So that's a very different come from versus a traditional, enterprise commercial business where it's a commercial outcome. So kind of think of it as Ulap's kind of CSR. We have more than that in our CSR program, but think of it as a kind of a quasi CSR solution to achieve the greater good.
Yeah, absolutely. And brand trust is a big deal in today's world, isn't it? Especially with, the world status as it is. It's really interesting you're doing that, and hats off to you. In terms of Ulap's approach, I mean, you really play the flexibility game, while a lot of other providers stick to relatively rigid solutions nowadays. So how crucial is your adaptability in winning over multinational clients? And do you think it's what's given you, Ulap, a seat at the kind of global enterprise table?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big reason for that is we are now intimately understanding the nuances of each jurisdiction. Ultimately, customers just want the same service, whether it's North America, Europe, Oceania, into these other difficult regions, into a single pane of glass. That's the holy grail, and that's what we deliver. But getting there requires certain skills that we have in our organization to bring customers onto that journey.
That's really good. And so, you're not just selling tech. Ulap's fully managing services from start to finish. I know you've got a whole portfolio of solutions from numbers, SIP trunking to UCAS, and there's a whole lot going on in there. Is that a big differentiator for Ulap?
Yeah, I think, well, actually, let's bring that down. So, multinational organizations they may have branch offices in these jurisdictions, but not have a full delivery mechanism in those jurisdictions. We have a network of service delivery across all of these countries where we can actually help our customers with that service delivery in those jurisdictions. Call it intelligent remote hands, so to speak, if I can, use that terminology, but also providing more than just that. So yes, there is the voice. There's also the connectivity, the secure connectivity as well. There's a whole host of different solutions, but we're becoming the in-country trusted advisor because we've worked out the regulatory. We know how to bring goods and services across borders, understanding customs issues. There's a whole host of other things that come with this learning that we're actually bringing to customers as well.
Great. And you've conquered some of the most complex markets in the world. So, what's next for Ulap, and are there any other regions you're itching to disrupt and dominate in the coming year?
Yeah, look, I think this is something that we're really looking at, which is how do we bring this back to the mothership jurisdictions, help with the aggregation solution. So make the customer their own telco, so to speak. That's something that's where we're itching to look at how do we bring that to market. But I think, one of our little things that we've got up our sleeve right now is as a licensed carrier in multiple jurisdictions, we're in the middle of building our own 5G core. So we're now looking about how do we integrate the solutions of these UC vendors without an app. So using the native dial pad of the integration across all of these difficult jurisdictions or hard to reach, that's what we're now looking about. How do we bring that? That's a promise that the UC vendors have been trying for quite some time, but because of the regulatory challenges, haven't been able to get there. So with us, we have carriage license. We have that little bit of a niche differentiator that we can go to market with something unique like that. So watch that space. That's something I think that's going to be very exciting. But I'll leave it at that, not to give too much away.
Well, we look forward to that news in the future, and hopefully we'll be the first one to find out. But you've got a great story. Really interesting talking to you today. For anyone out there looking to find out more about Ulap and what you do, what's the best way to get in touch?
Please come to our website, ulap.net, and all the resources and contact details are there.
Well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Dominic, it's been great talking to you. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Rob. This has been amazing. Thank you for your time.
And that's it from us. If you're new to UC Today, subscribe. If you're not, then give us a like or even a share on social. It's always appreciated. I'm Rob Scott from UC Today. Thanks for watching.